critical analysis of Juvenile Justice System Act of Pakistan. Before delving into the merits of the JJSA, it is first important to highlight the legal challenges that arose out of the operation of the JJSO. A common issue under JJSO was determining whether a juvenile court would have jurisdiction if a juvenile has committed a terrorism offense or an anti-terrorism court, ATC. A perusal of case law under JJSO shows that there are two categories of cases. One category of cases states that if a juvenile has committed a terrorism offense, an ATC shall have jurisdiction to try the case, whereas the second category states that even if a juvenile has committed an offense under the Anti-Terrorism Act, ATA, it should be tried by a juvenile court, especially in relation to offenses falling under items 2 and 3 of the third schedule of the ATA. The first category of cases was also strengthened by the fact that Section 14 of the JJSO did not curtail or limit the power of anti-terrorism courts pertaining to a child's trial, but clarified that the provisions of the ordinance shall be in addition to and not in derogation of any other law for the time being in force. Furthermore, Section 21G of the ATA states that all offenses under this act shall be tried exclusively by anti-terrorism courts established under this act. Therefore, this lack of clarity became an issue when determining whether a special court, such as an anti-terrorism court, ATC, or a narcotics court shall have jurisdiction over a juvenile court. JJSA has attempted to deal with this issue. Section 23 of the Act states that the provisions of the law will have an overriding effect notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force. However, further clarity will still be needed, especially in relation to offenses that fall under items 2 and 4 of the third schedule of the ATA, in light of Section 21G of the ATA. Furthermore, JJSA distinguishes between minor and major offenses, and both of these are treated as bailable offenses for the purpose of acquiring bail. In relation to the investigation of a juvenile, the juvenile shall not be interrogated by a police officer below the rank of a sub-inspector, and the investigation officer designated shall be assisted by a probation officer or by a social welfare officer, notified by the government to prepare a social investigation report to be annexed with the report prepared under Section 173 of the CRPC. But perhaps the most welcome change that has been brought about by the JJSA is the disposal of cases through diversion in Section 9 of the Act. The Act aims to establish juvenile justice committees in each district, which shall dispose of cases with the consent of the accused by resorting to different modes of diversion, including restitution of movable property, reparation of the damage caused, written or oral apology, participation in community service, payments of fine and costs of the proceedings, placement in a juvenile rehabilitation center, and written and oral reprimand. This is in cases where the complainant is not a state functionary. Additionally, Section 17 of the Act provides safeguards for female juveniles. The Act states that a female juvenile shall not in any circumstance be apprehended or investigated by a male officer or released on probation under the supervision of a male officer. A female juvenile shall only be kept in a juvenile rehabilitation center established or certified exclusively for female inmates. Additionally, the Act provides a penalty for disclosing the identity of a juvenile and also provides for the making of rules under the Act to implement the same. These provisions will go a long way in reintegrating delinquent juveniles into society and improving Pakistan's compliance with international human rights standards. However, all this depends on the proper implementation of these provisions. Lack of implementation of key provisions of JJSA 2018 will ultimately render the legislation ineffective and will deprive young offenders of their constitutional right to a fair trial.